Not yet. You're live.
Okay, thank you. It is Monday, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. It
Yeah.
is, I hope you all did your Valentine's for your favorite person, or maybe for your least favorite person. That would be a good one. Anyway, this is the Senate Reapportionment Committee, and we are meeting on a Monday, which normally we don't do, but we simply cannot find enough time during the week. So we're meeting on Monday, and I am going to, as the prerogative of the chair, kick off with because I know different groups have been meeting, but I thought I would kick off with what Brian and Allison and I kind of did this morning so that everybody can see what we did. Is that okay with everybody if we just, I know that Chris, you've met, and Andy and Randy and Bobby, different people have been meeting, but and doing work. But if we started off, because we started at the bottom and worked up, and we solved almost everything.
Good girl. That's good.
So here's what we did. I don't know, Nick, if you want to put up the map that Nick worked with us this morning, and he put a pin in the map that we suggest, the changes that we suggested, so that we can see it. Is that good, everybody? So we'll start at the very bottom on the Mass border. South. There we are. Perfect. Okay. So we made two changes to the minority map. We moved Londonderry into Bennington County because they don't come south to Brattleboro as much as they go over to Manchester, and their kids go to school over there at Burr & Burton. So we moved Londonderry to Bennington and then moved Wilmington back into Windham. That's what we did there. Then
Wilmington?
Yeah, Wilmington has been in Bennington for 20 years, and they're really anxious to get back to Windham County. And Searsburg, you can see Searsburg there, they're only 126 people, but there's a huge mountain there, and it's really almost impossible in the winter to get from Wilmington to Bennington. I mean, it isn't impossible, but it's really, that mountain is very difficult and sketchy in the winter. So it made sense to put them back into Windham. So I think that if you have any questions about that, otherwise we can move up.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Hi, this is Tom. Do the labels with the deviations on them reflect the changes that you have tentatively made?
Yes.
Good. Got it. Thanks.
They do. So Bennington is a little bit off, but they're still around 7. So that's what we've done right now. So if you want to move so we can see more of Rutland and Windsor. We moved Pittsfield out of Rutland and over into Windsor because that is all one kind of community and school district: Rochester, Stockbridge, Pittsfield. So we moved that over there and out of Rutland, which then made Rutland at a -6.5 and Windsor at a -3 and a little more.
We did move Mount Holly back to Rutland County, Madam Chair.
Yes, we did. We moved Mount Holly back.
Jeannie's map had that.
Huh?
Jeannie's map had that.
Yes, and we left that and on the minority map that way.
Yeah.
So we moved Pittsfield and we left Mount Holly and Rutland. Then if you go up here to where Orange and Windsor are, I believe Jeannie's map, both, and ours left Thetford and Stratford in Windsor. We spent a ton of time on Orange County, and there is no way that Orange County can have all of its towns and still be a 1-member district. It ends up being a 1.5-member district, and there's just no way around it. So we moved that. Then we moved Braintree over to Addison. And we are going to check with people in Braintree. None of us knew anybody in Braintree, to find out there is no road from Rochester to Braintree. You can only get to Braintree through Randolph, but maybe you can get there from Granville. So we moved that, which put Addison then at a -5, 6, and Orange at almost perfect. And then if you go down, back down, and we left Newbury in the 1-seat Caledonia district. And what else did we do?
Just going back to Addison, the reason
Yeah.
that we moved Braintree was strictly because of population. Well, I say strictly, primarily because of population, because we did take Charlotte out and move it back into Chittenden.
Right,
And
and
we-
Huntington and Buell's Gore are part of this deal too.
Right, we moved Huntington and Buell's Gore to Addison
Again, I mean,
again, and Charlotte to Chittenden. And that's what we did this morning.
But one question on Addison.
Yeah.
I remember historically Granville and Hancock were always difficult because there's this range of mountains that runs on the western side of both that disconnects them from Addison County. And then when you look at Braintree, I would think there would be even a further disconnect to Addison County.
Yeah, that's a good thought, Randy. Again, it comes down to numbers in some cases, and Addison, according to Jeannie's map, was still short by about 3.75%. So we're just trying to find some population, because we know that we're going to honestly have a battle if we leave Charlotte in Addison. There's just, even though the number works great, because Charlotte's fairly well populated, I think there's somewhere near 4,000 people in it, but they have more of an orientation toward Chittenden County.
Yeah.
And they're gonna come struggling if we try to push them into Addison. So we were trying to look for an alternative way to pump up Addison's numbers a little bit.
And I think that the Granville, Braintree, Hancock thing, they don't neatly belong anywhere. I mean, you can't get there from Rochester. You can only get there from Randolph, and we couldn't put them in Orange because that would put Orange's population too far out of kilter. So they have been in Addison for the last at least 10 years.
well, as Nick points out, in a one-person district, even one town with only 1,200 people makes actually a big skew. So that moves Orange from like 7 something down to 2. So the deviation is more modest. And the road goes from Rochester, Route 100 goes up through Hancock and Granville. But it goes up through Granville, not on, with Braintree. It goes west.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, Granville and Hancock are part of Addison County now. I mean, they haven't,
Mhm.
they're part of the county.
So what about
then-
Rochester? Because Granville, Hancock, Rochester all run right along in that valley together up through Warren
Well,
and
Yeah, it's the Green Mountain Ridge, actually. It's
Yeah.
all kind of very mountainous. The Rochester's part of Windsor County. I mean, it has been always. And Windsor County is the largest county in Vermont, 977 square miles.
we don't care how big you are.
So
I
I think,
want you to know how big we are.
and Westminster, I believe, is the biggest town.
Is it?
I think so.
The biggest physical town?
That's what I understand. At least it is in anyway. So that's what we did there. And then I think that we didn't do any numbers, but we figured Washington was really pretty perfect. The Caledonia district, the 1-member district, was pretty perfect. And the 2 Orleans, Essex ones were pretty perfect and could be combined into 1 2-member district if it was preferable because of the huge size of it, it might be, as Bobby pointed out, it might be preferable to have two people covering such a large physical area. So that's what we did this morning. That's
Madam Chair,
yes.
well, go ahead, Senator Starr.
No, I just was complimenting on Jeanette. I didn't think she would do that much work in such a short period of time.
It's Randy. He's a taskmaster.
I mean, Brian,
My God, I did it again. What is the matter with me?
I don't know. It's a little worrisome.
I know, because Brian is my go-to person, so I better be careful here. Chris?
Well, I'm just surprised to notice Caledonia, Caledonia and Essex and Orleans, either together or separate, are all over, and that it would not have been my expectation. Nick, are you meaning to take the map down, or?
Sorry, folks, I lost.
Well, they're over by 5 and 4.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not a judgment, just sort of expressing my surprise. I would have thought at the end of this exercise they would be under, but I suppose most are under. So
I mean, you could
balance
take,
out.
you could take, for example, Newbury and take it out of Caledonia, which would then reduce that and put it in Orange, but that really screws up Orange. You can't do it.
Yeah. Anyway,
And it's interesting because apparently, according to Jane Kitchell, this is this northeast area here with the 3 one-member districts as they are here, or 2 and 1, whichever, is very close to what Campbell had suggested 10 years ago.
Well, at least the way you've got it, there's nobody getting left out, right? The
Right.
present members. And,
Right.
and they're pretty well together. I mean, we're already way down into Concord over in Essex County. So if we pick up Kirby and some of those other little towns around there, it's not going to be, we're all in the same boat up here. So it won't be too bad.
But and on her map, you do pick them up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the only change we made to the map as it is right now is to move Walcott back into
Lamoille.
Lamoille.
Mhm.
We
That's
talked about that this morning. Randy will go over it.
Yeah, we looked at the 2 Northeast Kingdom districts and combined them into a 2-member district,
Mhm.
opposed to 2 one-member districts. So that's one of the
Mhm.
major changes that we made.
But you left them as they are, but just combined them.
Well, we made a few changes, and I believe Nick has a map that we did. Get to that
Okay.
after we, all of the things that you folks did. We can look at that map that we did, because we did make some changes in those 2 districts. We made some changes in Lamoille and Caledonia, and then we made changes in Franklin and Grand Isle.
Okay. Do you want to? Can we look at that map?
Sure, if I assume Nick has it available.
Certainly do. Let me pull it up.
And we finished more work to do. We've got another meeting scheduled, I believe, at Thursday noon for another hour. And in that meeting are Brian, Bobby, myself, Corey. Dick Mazza was invited, but he has made the mistake of saying he would rely on our judgment.
Oh boy, does he know what he has done?
he may not.
Well, we wouldn't abuse him. He's the dean of the Senate.
Absolutely not. So
North.
we did not pay any attention to Southern Vermont at all.
Thank you.
And we solely worked on the northern counties, recognizing that there may be a line or two lower down that may need some reconciliation. But we concentrated, first of all, on Essex Orleans with the notion of creating a single, a two-member district. I'm not sure that your map, this particular map reflects that, but the net effect is it's a two-member district. That's Caledonia, Orleans, and Essex. And is this?
That doesn't look like it.
No,
Yeah.
this is the alternate map, Jeannie's map.
Yeah, what we're looking for is the map that we drew this
Oh.
morning.
Yes, you know what? My apologies. I had it mislabeled. I will pull that up right now.
It's gonna look pretty similar.
Oh, shit.
Oops. We were worried about Star.
I did that once when I had to crawl underneath my desk and try and hook something up, and unfortunately, I said some not quite so nice things.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about me.
We worry about you all the time, Senator Starr.
I don't think anybody worries about me.
I do.
Apologies, folks. The file seems to have been lost, but I do have a snapshot of that I can call up instead.
Okay.
This continues to be a work in progress regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that should
Yeah.
be visible.
That's the one, Nick. Yep.
Can you
And
We're
you
only
zoom
doing
us in, Nick?
Sorry?
Can you zoom us in?
Yes.
Well, let's just start with Essex Orleans. And you see, we got to about a 2% deviation with what we did. We included, if you go just a little bit, a little bit up to the west to show those parts of Franklin County that are also included.
Yeah.
We started with the towns in Franklin County of Richford and Montgomery, the two easternmost towns in Franklin County, and we added those to the district, the Northeast Kingdom District, two-member district. And those towns have been part of that district at least for the last 10 years and possibly 20 years.
Or 20, I'd say.
Yeah, so it's for a long time. There's history of Richford and Montgomery being part of the Essex Orleans district. We then carried that district over so that it's the combination of the two single member districts that we've looked at on the earlier map.
Nick, if you can move it, maybe zero out just a little bit so that we can see all of the northern tier.
Certainly. I
Yeah,
actually
why
just
is your screen so narrow, Nick?
it's due to the format of the two screens that I'm using. I actually did find the Maptitude file that we're looking for, so I can actually pull that up.
Okay.
If I could ask, why'd you put Hardwick into Washington, it looked like?
Well, one of the things we were trying to do with Washington, well, we were trying to balance the number of people in Lamoille and also in the kingdom. And getting that balance right was one reason. So there were a couple things that we did with Washington as a result. And when we go down through it, you can see there are basically two main things that we did with Washington that did have an impact. And we're also trying to make sure that we didn't get Caledonia too far out of balance as a single member district, which was the other consideration. With Washington, you can see that with Washington, we did two things. The first thing that we did is we took Stowe out of LaMoille County and added it to Washington County. And one of the principal reasons we did that is, if you recall, Washington County, even though it contained the county boundaries, was way off. It was like something like -7% in terms of population. When we took Stowe and added it to Washington County, it came out almost right on the money in terms of virtually no deviation at all. And that's the principal reason that we did that as a start. We also were looking at it as to how to get a balance with LaMoille County, so LaMoille County wasn't way over in terms of size, which it would have been had Stowe remained there. The other thing that had an effect on the move between Stowe and the like is, if you could take your arrow, Nick, to the north, so that we include some towns to the north of those that are shown. In LaMoille County, the map that we had to start with took Belvedere and Eden and included those in the Franklin Senate District. And we thought that didn't make sense. There's just simply no connection, either county-wise or traffic-wise or any other kind of wise, between Belvedere and Eden and Franklin County. So we moved them back into LaMoille County. So that was one thing that we did. And by doing that, we recognized that Franklin County was going to be over in population. So we had to do something. And we took Fletcher, which is a town in Franklin County that is to some extent oriented as much to Cambridge because of just traffic patterns. And we added that to LaMoille as well.
They're in a school district too, right?
I believe so. I won't swear to it, Chris. I'm not positive, but I think that may be the case. But the orientation is more toward Cambridge than it is toward, say, St. Albans. And so we took Fletcher, since we know we had to lose something, and then we added it to LaMoille. And so with LaMoille, taking Belvedere and Eden and putting it back in, we get a district that is pretty balanced. And when we add it down to Washington, it came out right on the money as far as Stowe, but for other reasons, and perhaps Bobby can talk about that in a minute, we also added Hardwick and
Yeah.
Washington.
Well, Hardwick, Woodbury, everything goes basically south from Hardwick. And so it made more sense to put them in with Woodbury and Cabot and those towns than to put them anywhere else. And you know, it's a long ways from Hardwick to Walden. But I think they fit in there good because, you know, everything goes south. Route 1, 15 or 14 goes right down through, you know, Hardwick, and then down to Woodbury and so on, Calais, and right down through to Montpelier. So it made sense geographically to hook them together.
And the only thing you did to Caledonia was to move Hardwick out.
Yeah, and then we could put Linden back in with Caledonia, which operates right together with St. Johnsbury. You know,
I see. Oh, you put that back in.
Yeah, right. And the deviation works fine. Now, as we go north again, if Nick, you could take the arrow north and then northwest into Franklin. Right now, the Franklin Senate District includes Alberg, and we took that out of the Franklin District because Franklin District was too big. And so Fletcher went out and also Alberg went out. And then Franklin is still over. It's over about 5%, which is within the range of what we've done elsewhere. And one of the things, though, that the map that we've been working on does is it takes Georgia and puts it out of Franklin County. And we don't think that's appropriate. We think Georgia belongs in Franklin County. Georgia is the next town over from St. Albans. It shares the same zip code. It shares the same telephone prefix. And we felt that those two, really are very much together. So we put Georgia back into Franklin County. Alberg is out as part of the Grand Isle district. And beyond that, Franklin County is more or less contained, with the exception of that loss of Fletcher, which is a loss, and also Richford, Montgomery, which has been gone for 20 years. We're still working, frankly, on trying to reconcile what we do with Grand Isle and Chittenden. Now, thus far, there's a close relationship between Grand Isle and also Colchester, which is where Senator Mazza is from, and for that matter, also Milton, because the two House representatives who represent all of Grand Isle actually live in West Milton. And so we're still trying to work that out. There's no mandatory reason that those House representatives have to be in the same Senate district, but it's something that we'll be dealing with in the next meeting that we have as to how to reconcile it. And there are a couple of things that we've looked at as possibilities. One is a 2-member district consisting of Grand Isle in its entirety, as well as part of Chittenden, specifically Colchester, and perhaps Milton and part of Essex, but we're still working on that.
So, Randy, in this map, I mean, I know I'm blind, but Alberg appears to be in Grand Isle. I thought you said you moved Alberg.
No, it is. Alberg is part of the Franklin Senate District now. I represent Alberg.
Oh, I see. You moved it out into Grand Isle. Okay, got it.
And so the whole idea was to take all of Grand Isle County and put it in a single district, because the islands are very homogeneous. You could say that that Alberg could be assigned to Franklin because we've got the bridge, from West Swanton to Alberg, and so there is a definite connection that doesn't exist for the rest of Grand Isle. But our preference was to make Grand Isle whole.
And that's what the minority map did also. So the only thing I know about Alberg is that when I first came to the legislature 20 years ago, there was a big hoopla, and we had to put statute in to put the H back in Alberg.
Yes, that's right.
I remember that well. I was on House Gov Ops, and we learned that it was Alberg, not Alberg.
Correct.
And that they were very desirous of their H.
I'm happy to have been involved in putting the H back in Alberg and the H also back in Enosburg.
So when did the H get knocked out of Alberg?
I don't know.
That was a little bit of
okay.
Color joke.
The U.S.
Sorry.
Postal Service had something to do with that, I think.
Oh, of course. So let me, it seems to me that if we looked at from Addison, Orange down south, the work that Brian and Allison and I did this morning, and looked at north, the work that you guys did this morning, and looked at everything except Grand Isle and Chittenden, that it seems to me like that we have some pretty good solutions here, except, and certainly when we start dealing with Chittenden, that some of that might move about and change again. But Andy, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just put my hand up. So you can finish if you want.
Okay. It just seems to me that we have at least a draft that we could work from by putting those two things together somehow into one map, and then start looking at how that shakes out in terms of the counties that are impacted, like Lamoille and Washington. Okay. Anyway, that's just a suggestion for where we might go next. But Andy?
Yeah, I generally agree with that statement, but I just was going to say, I want to caution us that we don't say like, okay, we figured out this, because it could all change once we get into this difficult area of Chittenden County. you know, because just grabbing one town that has 2,500 people can be a huge percentage difference. So
Mhm.
something might seem like it works, but you know, like right now, as Randy said, Grand Isle has an 8.9% deviation. So there's going to be changes there, but that could domino down through Lamoille County or something. So
Yeah.
I remember something, it just reminded me of something that Tom Little said early on, that we will logically think that it's going to be easier to start with the bottom and go up, but then later we'll realize that we really have to start with the most difficult part and go out there. We might end up, I think we might end up there because we do all the easy stuff and then we get to the hard part.
But
that
could
hard
we,
part's gonna-
could we put a draft map together that does those two?
Well,
Puts,
But before we do
yes,
that,
Allison?
I have some concerns about Orange County again. And I don't know how Andy feels about, I mean, I think taking Stowe out is a big thing. I think that is like a huge issue for that community and for that. I think that's big and needs further thought. It's, you know, I also think that Newbury, which has been with the Caledonia district for a long time, I think that will be challenging, and to take Fairleigh and West Fairleigh away from Orange, I think is challenging. I think it's okay to do Upper Valley creep to Thetford and Stratford, but I think it's a little challenging to look at Fairleigh, West Fairleigh and Newbury. And take those.
Did they move those?
No, we
Yeah,
didn't move
Newbury got
those.
Move
moved
those.
out of Caledonia and put into Orange. I think those are,
No, that's not
No, they
right.
didn't.
I'm sorry, I thought I heard, that's what I heard you
The
say.
only thing they did to the Caledonia district was to move Hardwick out of it and Linden back in.
Right.
And
So
can I just see what, because I thought I saw Fairleigh and West Fairleigh moved out.
No,
So,
Okay, sorry, can I just see it? I mean, I can't see that part of the map.
Well, you said you heard it, so how?
I did, I thought I saw it. Ed heard it. So I'm happy to be mistaken. Yes, you did. So Fairleigh and West Fairleigh in this map are moved out of, or are moved into Windsor. And
yeah,
we,
but not into Caledonia. You said Caledonia.
no, but no, I'm talking
I
about
don't
what
know who
Orange
did
is
that, but
losing.
we didn't
I
touch it.
don't think that is a good, I think that's too, I think Tunbridge, I mean, Thetford and Stratford are one thing. I just don't believe Tunbridge, Fairleigh and West Fairleigh should be being moved out of Orange. I really want to keep counties as intact as possible, and that's a
But
lot.
Orange County simply cannot be kept intact.
No.
I agree, and I'm willing to, you know, I just think that's a lot. So I'm putting a red flag on that choice.
Okay, here's what I'm
Can
gonna
I-
ask Nick to do a map, a draft map of what has been done up to this point, so that we can see it all in one map, leaving all of Chittenden County. We haven't done anything to that. And as Andy said, it will, when we start doing it, it will impact. But if we have something that
Go.
some of us, and that we can start with, we have to start. And if we keep looking at 3 or 4 or 5 different maps, I think it's very confusing. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah,
Can I just interject?
ju-
I don't think that either, and I was in both of the subcommittees today. I don't remember Allison, Jeanette, and I fooling with West Fairleigh or Fairleigh at all. And I know
Or
that
Tun-
Randy,
or-
we didn't do it in the other group either. I don't know how that wound up there.
or Tunbridge. So Tunbridge is the heart of Orange County. I mean, the Tunbridge World's Fair is there. I mean,
Yeah.
really, that's a big move.
The only thing you and I and Jeanette did was move Stratford and Thetford. And I don't
Correct.
think Randy's group moved any of the Orange County ones.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Well,
like the by Shaggy, it wasn't me.
it wasn't
Right.
me.
so
could I just jump in and
Chris,
say
Chris,
part
yeah.
part of what's confusing is that in the current districts,
Yep.
Fairleigh, West Fairleigh, Bradford, Newbury, Topsham, Orange are all at Caledonia. The
Correct.
LAB map shifts some of them around into Orange, some into Windsor. So it could be that everyone's just making one little tweak, but it's a big change from where we sit today.
Yeah.
But Madam Chair, to your question of just combining these two maps, it's not bad. I don't care if you do that. But Nick, if you just fly us west to Chittenden County, you will run into a very persistent problem, which is one of these districts has over half too many.
Mhm.
And so this is, I have now drawn easily a dozen iterations, and you keep coming up with this half a senator, and it is a problem. And so this is, maybe it was Perch, like somebody said, we're never going to escape this problem. And so
Right.
thinking that we're in good shape and then coming back to a half senator problem is a whopper. And I'll just say the good people of Charlotte are organized and are looking out for being moved into Addison. They at least have a thoroughfare that they share with Addison. Heinsberg is not, I guess they're close to Moncton. But you're splitting up school district. It's very tricky. It's very difficult, I think, to justify this map, and you've got a half senator problem. So before we get too excited, I would just say, as I've tried to look at this, I keep coming into the same problem, and I'm not sure it's worth a ton to publish lines that are frankly haven't somehow at least tried to answer this problem, because the ripples are dramatic. I mean, we're talking about moving 12,000 people.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no intention of publishing this in any way. It's just for us to have another draft to look at.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, sure. I think that makes sense. But I guess as long as we're all oriented to how far from acceptable this really is, just because of this persnickety Chittenden problem.
So
Did you,
Chris, I'd be
run
very curious to see what you have been working on, because you are the Chittenden County person on this group. And I would really appreciate seeing some of the things you've been thinking about before we get any weddedness to this.
Sure. Well, I'd be glad to try to pull something together, a few options for tomorrow evening. This is the problem as I see it, is I can't do that. Well, it just all filters somewhere else. And so, I can do that in a way that is a big deviation for Colchester Grand Isle. If we're comfortable seeing that, I can do it in a way that, depends on Addison County not needing Charlotte. But so there's this chicken and egg problem that I don't know how we manage. Maybe what we should all do, and I'm glad to start with Chittenden County. I hadn't heard it. I've heard of south or north. I'd never heard of the tax base starting there and rippling out and seeing what happens there.
Before you go on, what have I been harping on every meeting about starting in Chittenden County, but nobody wanted to start in Chittenden County.
Well, I'm happy to do that.
Well, for my perspective, I don't know Chittenden County very well, so it's really hard for me to say, oh yeah, I see Essex and Williston could be together in one, because I don't know if they have any relationship to each other or not. So it's very hard for me, except just by numbers, to try and look at Chittenden County.
So that's why I'd appreciate maybe Chris taking us through some of his thoughts before we put anything together.
Well, and I can do that. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts, and it's not super neat, right? But and
how many senators are you saying? 6.5, Chris?
Well, 7.5. If you're, I think it's 7.5. We would say if you're including the islands.
Well, if you have 7.5 members, you can run your deviations as high as you possibly can with each of them 7 districts and see how you make out.
Well, sure, but we know if you do it that way, you're gonna run 16. Where are we in the status quo? Yeah, 15.7 is the current 6-member, and so you don't, just because you divide it up differently doesn't change the deviation. But why don't I start with, well, see, the problem is, what do I do with Addison County? Can I start? I'm not going to draw a map for Chittenden County that gives some of it away to Addison County. That's not what I want to do. So
we just spent a lot of money building a really nice bridge over to New York. Maybe we could send them to New York, all of Addison County.
No, we need them desperately in Vermont.
I think we could ship them and get along fine.
get a lot of good dairy products out of Addison County. I need that cheese.
I wouldn't move the farmers.
Then you're not moving Madison.
So I don't know what we do with Addison County, and I don't know what we do. I mean, it is going to all ripple. We know that exactly. But if we could, so one of the things that I asked Nick to do, and I'm maybe going to suggest this if other people want to do this, I asked Nick to send Jane a copy, the 3 sets of maps. And I think if Chris and Ginny and so people from Chittenden County could kind of start toying with this, and the same thing in the other places. If and I don't know how we feel about sending a set of all 3 maps to everybody in the Senate. I'm fine with it.
We'll just send them blank maps and tell them to work on Chittenden County.
Well,
Draw their own lines.
I guess rather than, I worry about that because we have
Okay.
a half senator to move around. And so we're not there. We got to have a map that balances out before we start the panic rush of our colleagues, don't you think?
Yes, I agree with you. They're
Well,
already.
no, I was thinking of the 3 maps as the map with the counties and the population of every town, the
Oh,
current districts, and the minority report. Those 3 maps, not
The
the
ones
ones
we
that
got.
you've been playing with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, sure. Sorry. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of sending them any proposals or
No.
moving around that we've done.
I thought, Chris, you said that there was a problem in Chittenden County because a couple of the senators live really close together or something, Chittenden and Shirotkin.
Yeah, I mean, that's true in a lot of our districts here, but yes, that is one of the elements that we're wrestling with. To me, that's not a big one, but it's one of them.
So they aren't in the same town or the same, like South Burlington or.
They are, in fact, both from South Burlington.
I'd say that was a major problem.
Oh, Sirotkin lives in South Burlington?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
So you gotta, if you're gonna maintain their seats, you gotta split South Burlington in some way.
Well, they could be in a 2-seat district, but I'm a little uncomfortable
See,
with a stated goal of
Yeah,
preserving incumbents. I mean, I think,
I think,
we have to see if we can earn their votes. So it's not impossible to think about. But to me, there's a lot of higher principles
mhm.
that should guide our work.
Yes, agreed.
keeping counties as close as possible, and towns and school districts and all the things we've talked about.
Yeah, and in my mind, school districts fall farther down to the bottom than because school districts change as we pass Act 46 and as we have union high schools and districts overlap with each other. But I think we need to not try as much as possible not to split towns.
What about house districts? Do
Nah.
people, are,
Dave, I'm less worried about house districts.
but if you,
I think Chris had a question about them.
well, I mean, for instance, if in a two-town house district, trying to think of what would be example, I don't know if this is the way it goes, but if Hardwick and Walden are represented by one house member, it's a little weird to have people in that house district have different senators, don't you think?
Well, that was the case in Wilmington for 20 years.
And it's been
John
the case in
Gannon,
Mount Holly.
yeah.
I don't represent Mount Holly, Allison does, but they're in Rutland County.
Well,
No, in Wilmington, Wilmington and Whitingham are in the same house district. Wilmington was in Bennington County and Whitingham was in Windham County. So the one house district member, one house member from that represented that district had to relate to two different senators because he had towns in two different counties.
Well, the same thing exists in Grand Isle County right now.
Yeah,
And it's the same in Londonderry. It's the same with lots of our towns. Same with the Rochester Pittsfield one at the moment.
Yeah, that.
well, I'm
doesn't-
glad to have the tour of the state, but is this a principle? I mean, to me, that's a problem that we should be trying to address. That there's a
I don't-
principle of trying to make this simple. I'm not saying nobody's expressing a hard rule, but that seems like an important one to me.
you mean to
Well,
keep
Don't even
house
know.
districts?
Well,
One senator per house district? I don't think it can be done.
Well,
I think.
I mean, we can't do any of it, right? We can't keep the county lines intact. We can't blah, 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 blah. All I'm saying is anyone else interested in trying to comport to the fact that if you're in a house district, anyone in your house district has the same senator, if you can pull
No.
that off?
You can't do that.
I think that will be.
Well, of course you can.
But
No,
we-
you can't. The only way you could have done that is to accept the majority report.
Well,
Where they
okay,
took
so
they took 5 house districts and put them together to make a Senate district. So it did keep that
That's
intact, but that's the only way you could do it.
all right, let me try. I don't feel like I'm being clear. Let me try one more time, and then Senator Purchett's very patient.
Yeah, he's been patient.
We're trying to honor county lines. We're trying to acknowledge community flow. We're trying to acknowledge the current districts. There's a bunch of things we're trying to do. I would like us to also try to web together House seats in a straightforward way with the Senate, if possible. To me, that would be easily. You just said, Madam Chair, that school districts don't bother you. Well, okay, I think that's one way to reflect a sense of community, but not a hard and fast rule. I would say also a house district is a way to reflect a sense of community. And if possible, if you're voting in House District X, you should all of you be in one Senate district. To me, that would be a principle. If nobody else thinks, then I'll just try to work it in myself, but it seems like it would be on the list.
Andy?
I agree that it should be on the list. I think it is something that, all things being equal, if there's a change of 2 towns, then one scenario puts a house district in one Senate district and another scenario separates them, we should try to keep them in another district. I think the difficulty will be, we don't know what the house districts are because they're working on it simultaneously with what we're doing. We can look at the maps, but that, we might think that we're putting 2 towns in the same Senate district only to find out a week later they changed it. But I agree with Chris that it should be on the list of things we tried to do, but just like everything else, it's going to be difficult, but even more so because those lines could change by the House as they're working on their maps.
I agree they should be on the list. I think, but to me, towns are more important if possible to keep whole. And, if we're looking at those, to me, towns, counties, towns, as much as we can, keeping things whole is good. And if that includes a House district, it's one thing to consider. I think it's one criteria for us to include as it's not on the principles we initially talked about and agreed to, I think, but it certainly is something to consider.
But how do we consider if it's not yet known?
Right.
Yeah,
We don't know what those House districts are going to look like. I know right now, based on what House districts look like, I've got a lot of potential conflicts. I've got something like Richford and Montgomery that will move over to the Essex Orleans district. They're there right now from a Senate standpoint. Now, one of those towns is represented by a representative who has 4 other towns in Franklin County. The second district is represented by a representative who has 2 completely different towns in Franklin County, even though they're represented by senators from Essex Orleans. The same thing to the west when you look at Alberg.
yeah.
The representatives come from West Milton, which is in Chittenden County. The senators come from Franklin County. And we've got a lot of these kinds of situations around the state. And to have us devise our method on the basis of what the House is doing, we don't have a clue what the House is actually going to wind up with. So do we wait until the House makes its decision and then use that to drive our decision making? I don't
Oh,
think
we
that's-
can't.
That's not
They
realistic.
won't have anything. They won't have anything until probably when ours is due.
And the way that works anyways, Randy will show up at a meeting in Franklin County and I'll be there too. So, I mean, it's all baloney trying to match House districts up with senators. You go and cover the bases, because I'm representing him as their senator. He'll show up because he's interested in his county. And I think in Chittenden County, if Chris wants to try to divide them up that way, go for it.
But I think Andy had a really good point. We will not know until the very last minute how because I had a conversation with the town clerk in Londonderry this morning or yesterday, and she happens to be also the rep from Londonderry. She has no idea what her district is going to look like. If it's going to be Londonderry, Jamaica, Winhall. They've done it about 3 different ways so far. So she doesn't know at all how it's going to look.
Jeanette,
Yes.
I've got to excuse myself.
Okay, you're excused.
I've got to go to a meeting with the select board in my town, my hometown. So I'll see you tomorrow. Sorry.
But
Okay,
well,
Chris.
just because I'm not sure how this happened, but I'm not saying it should be the overarching principle or anything. I'm just trying to say you've taken some things and put them on a list, and I'm trying to add this to the list. That's all.
And we can add it to the list. I'm just not sure how we deal with it.
Well,
we don't know what they are.
They have a pretty good sense of 80% of the House districts already. I mean, it's a fluid project, obviously, but I would be a mistake to not, have it as a factor to consider.
Chris, are they close to settling in the Chittenden area? I mean, are those less thorny than some of the other ones that have always been?
I don't know. I don't know. Their first crack map, would be revealing, right? So that the map that we all passed along to the locals, it gives you a pretty good sense of some of it.
I think that was the minority map that they just passed along. I don't think that they had taken a lot of testimony and done a lot of work on that map. They had to get it there and get it signed by the governor so that it can come back.
I don't feel like arguing about this anymore. If you guys don't care about it, that's fine. I will work on that,
You,
and
Yeah.
you can.
Well, two of us have said we think it should be a piece of our consideration. So as things get finished, we should know, we should be aware. I think it's something that should be definitely on our radar screen. Nope. I think there are two of us who are saying we think that it should be considered also. But as Randy's pointed out, it's not done either. So I think as aware as we're able, Chris, we should be aware of it.
So I feel like you all have handed me an assignment to give you a Chittenden County map.
Yeah.
Do you want me to start with the Chittenden County District and the Grand Isle County and do my best?
Yes, because the deviation here with this Grand Isle is way high. I mean, that's very high.
And what about Addison County?
well, we're gonna have to start making some shifts. What I would do is ask Nick to do a draft map and put a pin in it, as he pointed out before. That's how he called it, of what we talked about today. And then start looking at Chittenden County and how that is going to then impact and shift what we've done today. But at least we have something to start looking at.
Okay, maybe we'll get him to combine those two maps,
Right.
and I'll use that as a starting point and try to fix them.
Certainly. I can do that.
Okay. And if you want us to send the set of three maps, not this new draft that we're talking about, but the set of three maps to the other senators so that they can begin to look in the same way at these maps, it might be helpful, because I know when Jane and I talked the other day, it was very helpful for her to have that, to be able to hear what exactly was on that map.
I sent the alternative map today to Mark McDonald. I mean,
but I would also send the county maps with all the population on the towns and the current districts. I would send the set of three.
Are you wanting to do that, Madam Chair, or do you want Nick to send those to all the senators?
Well, I'm asking people if they think that's a good idea.
I think those are set. So I think those are a good idea, and that we are, I think it should be prefaced as we're using as a foundation the alternative map for our, we're using that as our jumping off point.
I agree.
Okay, so Nick, could I ask you to, I don't hear any opposition from anybody. So Nick, could we ask you to, and I will, let's see, I guess I should try and get mailing addresses to you.
No,
I
he has
they have-
all Senate. It's just all Senate.
No, this is going in the mail, Allison, in the mail.
The Sergeant at Arms has our mailing address.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I do wonder if it's worth just it doesn't have to be artful, but a cover letter to help people understand what they're looking at.
Jeanette, if you were willing as chair to pen a quick note that you could send to Nick and that could go with those, I think that would be important.
I will do that.
Certainly. So just to clarify, we're talking about the LAB alternative, the current districts with current population and the county population map.
Yes.
Okay.
What you send us.
Yes.
Here's my question, though. I'm trying to understand, what benefit is that going to be for the people who have not participated in this discussion about how far we've deviated already, at least in our planning or in our discussions, from any of those documents? Does this add more confusion?
Maybe it does. If we think that, then maybe we shouldn't do this. I just thought that it might be helpful for people to look at it, but I'm fine either way.
So it would seem to me that if we have even tentatively arrived at something based on our discussions, that we could say it, but I don't think we have.
No, I agree. But I think it would be thoughtful to, I mean, we could direct them all. We could do a direct link in an email to all of them with the alternative map, which is a jumping off point. And so I think that is a good thing for them to see if they haven't gone to our website and looked at it.
Or perhaps what they should get is the current Senate districts and the population map, the just those two, so that they can see how far off their current, the current districts are. It might just help people realize that, oh my God, Lamoille is 13 and Chittenden is 15. That's, or we don't have to send them anything.
Well, I think we have a very good website that, quite frankly, the big maps are important for us who are having to be intimately involved with this. The website is very good and has these maps, and we could send 3 very distinct links to the alternative map, the one with the county and the populations and the current districts. And I think if we sent those 3 links in an email to everybody, just to call them out and draw people's attention to it, to get them, I think to engage them, that would be good.
Yeah,
Or
provided,
maybe we should just leave it alone, and if people are interested, they know where to go on our website and look at the maps. We don't, if people aren't interested, then they don't have to be interested. Chris?
Well, it seems like pretty soon we might have one of our maps to show them. So
Yeah,
maybe it is smart not to
Yeah.
get them confused until that.
I think you're right.
But
I've
then we
changed
could
my
send
mind.
them,
Thank you.
we could send them some of the background maps too, so that they understand that,
Yeah.
you know, they could have had a lot worse, sort of thing.
At the, yeah, okay. I've changed my mind, Nick. Okay. Okay, well, Chris, we're looking forward to your solving Chittenden County.
and Chris, you're welcome to join our group, because we are working on Grand Isle County as well at our next meeting, which is Thursday noontime. And which is with Bobby, Corey, myself, and Brian.
Well, I'm happy to be part of it. Brian was sending me emails wondering if I was joining, but I didn't think I was invited and I didn't have a link, so I couldn't join you today, but
Yep.
Happy to do that. I'm going to try really hard to get a framework for Chittenden County by tomorrow evening, because we're still meeting tomorrow at 4 or whatever, right?
No,
5, I think.
5.
not tomorrow. No, Wednesday.
This was a little bit unclear, and Mike
It
was asking me about when we set this up, did we decide that we were going to still meet on Tuesday night, or that we canceled Tuesday night and we're going to meet Wednesday morning at 7:30? I think that's what we decided.
We
Yeah.
canceled Tuesday and we're meeting
Yeah.
Wednesday at 7:30.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So bright and early Wednesday, I'll do my best to have a map for a conversation.
Okay.
And Chris, let me just say, I really do think it's important that you join us. I look at this, well, it's a poor analogy, but I'll say it anyway, as a 3-legged stool, and you're like a huge leg of this, because without your input for Chittenden, we have absolutely no way to know what's best for Grand Isle, Franklin, Addison, or Washington in a way, because there's too much of a ripple effect. I mean, you're right. If you add up your population and divide it by the 2144, you really ought to have 7.5 senators. And I don't know whether that's going to happen. We seem to have agreed, at least to some degree, that Caledonia is going to lose one. So there will be sort of that one, but we need you in that group. We really do.
I don't suppose you can run for half a seat.
Well,
Run for the house.
Should we make a half seat? We could put a little chair beside Richie's desk.
so before we finish today, may I just revisit how Orange County lost Tunbridge, Fairleigh, and West Fairleigh? Because I think it needs to regain those.
Yeah, I think you have a point, Allison. I don't know how that happened on this map. As I
Yeah.
said, UI and Allison, or UI and Jeanette didn't do it. And I know
No.
Randy and his group didn't, so I'm
No,
not sure where that happened.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about that. So I really want to make sure Orange is,
yeah,
uh,
Orange and Tunbridge are back.
Orange needs Tunbridge, Fairleigh and West Fairleigh back in it.
Can you make that switch now, Nick?
I certainly can.
Just scroll over north or southwest, southeast to Orange County and undo Tunbridge, Fairleigh and West Fairleigh.
Certainly, as soon as I get control of this
Yep.
program, I will
Oh.
make that change.
Who is
Did
it
you
like
lose control?
Hal? Is it taking control?
It's oh, look, there looks
Oh.
like there was dealing with some kind of error. Okay, so we're moving
There you go.
West
You're there.
Fairleigh and Fairleigh back into Orange,
And Tunbridge.
Yes, and
as well as
Tunbridge.
Tunbridge.
Yeah,
It's gonna jump their deviation probably about a full percentage point, but
Right, but Newberry, Newberry has been put back in, which is Jane, the Caledonia district has had Newberry for a long time. So I think that's a question mark for us that we need to work on.
oh wow.
well,
18
Newbury, we left Newbury in Caledonia
Yes,
County. We did
we
not,
did.
it is not in Orange.
Yeah, yeah, if you could undo Newberry and ship that north.
And then
Certainly.
Braintree goes to Addison.
Braintree to Addison. Okay.
Yeah, that's the map that Brian and Allison and I worked on. And I think that if you combine the two maps, you'll find, you won't have to correct it on here, because if you combine those two maps, you'll see that the Orange County towns are where they should be.
Certainly.
well, let's see what happens, because now so
But
Braintree.
these aren't the maps that,
No, they're not.
This,
this is not the map that we dealt with and that Randy and Brian and Bobby dealt with. So I think that we should ask Nick to combine the two. And in the map that we had Braintree in Addison County, and the rest of it was as is on here. So
Yep.
if he looks at that map, he'll see that we don't have to change it on this map.
Yep.
Because this isn't the map that we're going to, right?
True.
I think the map we were looking at was the map that Randy, Bobby, and Brian worked on.
Yeah, but we didn't change anything in Orange, so this is basically the alternative plan right here anyway.
And had you put Braintree into
No,
Addison?
we did,
No.
Allison, we did
I
that
know
on
we
our
did,
map.
Jeanette, I know. I'm just curious in terms of the numbers, because
We didn't set foot in Orange County.
and did you set foot in Addison?
No,
No.
Okay, because on this map, Addison is also rearranged a bit.
Yes, but
I know, but if they didn't touch it, Jeanette, we need to figure out how it got changed.
because, well, let's let Nick try to combine the two maps. Because
Yeah.
it's really hard looking at one map and trying to remember what the other map was. So let's let him combine. And so what was done up to Washington and Addison by us, and then what was done from Canadian border down to Washington and Caledonia by the other group. And then that leaves Chittenden County out there, and it's okay. Because I think that we're trying to make all the changes on one map, and we should just let him make one map by combining the two.
yeah, but there will be differences, like, for example, in Washington County, between what you did and what we did.
Yes,
That's where differences, there will probably be some differences in Caledonia.
I think the only difference in Caledonia was Linden.
Yep. That's probably why it looks like it's 13% over right now.
So I'm happy to have you move, well, if you move Linden down, it's going to be even more over.
Yeah.
But, so I would say go down to the Orange County for what we did, and down from the top down to Orange with what you guys did.
Yep.
So that would make those changes in Caledonia and Essex and Washington and stuff. Because you also moved Hardwick and
Walcott.
Walcott, yeah.
Oh.
And I think we
Certainly.
have talked about that too, but
Certainly, I'll put together a draft of that map and just be in contact about any other conflict areas that I see.
okay. Tom, did you have a comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Tom Little from the Apportionment Board. Two things. This gets very confusing. So don't be too tough on yourselves. And sometimes what I did was to print out some of these maps and have them on a table and sort of slow myself down and not jump around as much, because it can be very confusing and disorienting. The second comment is that it's important to always check when you think you've got something figured out as to how many senators you now have in your proposed map. Once in a while, 10 years ago, in some of my work, I ended up with 151 House members. And you can find yourself in the same problem. I think the mapping systems will correct for that, but you've got to keep an eye on it.
Yeah. That's a good
exactly
point.
right. If you say this will flag it if it exceeds the intended number of districts or senators,
Right.
but once you ignore that in favor of getting a draft, you can often forget to readjust it afterwards. So that'll be something that I can keep an eye on.
Yeah, David Sheets probably would be very happy if we put a folding chair beside Richie's
Yeah.
desk. All right. Well, I think that you northern guys did good work. I think that,
Well,
and
it's just interesting to see all these different options and think about them, but not to get married to everything too soon.
right, so you'll put these together and it'll flag where there are differences with the two maps. And I would say, I don't know how Brian and Allison feel about this, but I would say starting with orange, do what the northern group came up with. And then let's see how that shakes out.
North of Orange.
Yes, starting with orange and going north,
Certainly, I can do that.
except for Braintree. Oh no, leave Orange County in our map because we moved Braintree. Yeah,
Okay.
but north of Orange, yeah. Okay. All right, well, I have to say, Nick, thank you for sending out all these maps. I found it very helpful and it was really fun to try and move people around.
Oh,
Now,
absolutely.
It's great to be actually able to hold a bunch of them and you can go back and forth. It's much, actually having the physical map is much easier than all these different screens. I agree.
Well,
So
I was
thank-
happy to draft them, but credit goes to Tony from the mailroom for getting them printed and out to you folks.
Well, thank him.
Please give him a big thank you.
I certainly
So
will.
what I would suggest is that on Wednesday morning, then we'll come back in with a draft map and whatever Chris brings to us or whatever the Chris group brings to us. And maybe we can have those printed out and sent to us also so that we can start looking at that.
Mhm.
Problem is we won't get, okay, yeah, we won't get them.
Well, yes, we'll get them sometime.
Yeah. So for Wednesday morning, are we done then? And we'll meet Wednesday morning at 7:30. I want to know who's stopping at Red Hand and bringing the sticky buns.
Well, I don't even know where
Joke.
Red Hen is, so it's not gonna be me.
Oh my God, great bakery in Moortown, I think, right? Moortown,
And
I don't know if I go to a bakery named
They're in
Hen.
Middlesex.
Middlesex.
so I don't know, Nick, if this is possible when you guys work on the Chittenden area, if you can just make that a lot bigger, because I
Really
think that
hard to see.
it's very hard to look at those towns. But anyway, I'm sure we can zoom in on them. So never mind what I just said. I was just talking through my hat.
Okay, if it becomes necessary in a snapshot version of anything, I can do an inset that highlights Chittenden County.
Okay. Oh, an inset. That's good. Like they do on
Yeah.
maps. Yeah.
Mhm.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Do we have more to do today?
It all looks good. I think we will see each other tomorrow, and thank you.
No,
Wednesday.
I
Wednesday.
meant Wednesday with sticky buns at 7:30 a.m.
Okay. So I think that wraps up what we're doing today. I don't have no idea what time it is, but
It is almost 5:20.
oh, it seems that we've run out of steam.
I'm reapportioned out.